To Stokes, who's onside. 1-0.
Here's Sims. It's a good search this from Southampton. They could finish the job here. It's Shane Long, and he has done it.
Just a minute to play. That's stoppage time. Here's Letizia. Who better to say farewell than one of the finest players ever to wear the red and white.
Hello and welcome to the Saints FC podcast. We are back for the 2020 to 21 season. It seems like we're late. It's the 7th of September. We would normally be doing this sort of show a month earlier, but it also feels like football's barely just gone. And it wasn't all that long ago, Tom, that I was speaking to you before. So, Tom, how are you?
Yeah, really good, John. Really, really good. Excited about the football starting again.
And how's this mini break from football treated you? Have you coped well in the few weeks that I've not had a chat to you about football? Although, I guess we have kept the conversation going over WhatsApp, but
yeah, I don't. It's going to be such an intense time, isn't it? For what is it? The Premier League season that's shorter. There's no winter break. There's no rest, for players. Harry Kane looks exhausted. The season hasn't even started. It's going to be great fun.
It's going to be weird. It's going to be the schedule-wise, it's going to be so action-packed, isn't it? There's just going to be game after game after game after game.
Yeah.
And then stadium-wise, it's going to be absolutely sparse with hardly anyone there at all. It's going to be a bizarre season, and hopefully before the end of the season, Tom, you and I would have been able to actually go and watch a live game.
Yep.
Although I'm not sure whether that's going to be the case or not. In fact, I'm just going to add that to our predictions list. Will we get to see a game in person? Interesting.
The good thing is our first game is the one that's closest to me. It's just down the road, Palace.
Yeah.
And it's bloody behind closed doors, typical.
What are you going to do? You're going to wander down, hire a cherry picker?
I'll just go outside the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe just put a Saints shot on and offer any Crystal Palace fans if they want to fight.
Do you reckon you can sneak in out of the back of the Sainsbury's? Because there's a Sainsbury's built into the stadium.
It's built into a Sainsbury's, yeah.
Yeah, I reckon that. Do you think there's a Narnia sort of door if you go into the frozen aisle or something?
Through the meat locker bit.
Yeah. And you can sneak
pull
in.
on a haunch of beef and the door opens, there in the tunnel.
It's how Wilf Zaha actually sneaks into the ground without getting mobbed by fans. He dresses up as someone from the Sainsbury's meat counter and slips in behind and then kind of gets into the stadium. You heard it here, Tom. Right, we should probably get on to some real stuff. What do you reckon?
Yeah.
Yeah,
do it, John. Go for it.
It's our season preview episode, which means we have to make some predictions, which will all be horribly wrong by the end of the season. But it's fun doing it, and it gives us a chance to talk about what we think Saints are going to get up to this season. One unusual bit is that we've already had an England game before we're doing this season preview. So we had a rather dubious 1-0 win over Iceland. And England games, we don't normally spend an awful lot of time talking about them because there haven't traditionally been that many Saints players in the England squad. But we've had Ings and James Ward-Prowse playing against Iceland. Ings' first game for England for many, many moons. And I think, that's testament to everything that he's done to kind of get himself back to fitness, injury-free, and the season that he's had. And then James Ward-Prowse had his first start for England. And you could almost argue, although maybe not the full 90-minute performance, certainly stoppage time performance was almost worthy of man of the match.
Yeah, he did his bleep housery, didn't he, that everyone loves. The best thing about it was not that he did it, and not obviously that Iceland missed penalty, was you got Roy Keane, who's one of the most brilliant but vicious and nasty and horrible professional footballers of the modern time, sort of was bemoaning it, wasn't saying it's cheating and I don't like to see it.
Yeah.
And it's Roy Keane. Glass houses.
Yeah, Roy Keane. What's Did he
Didn't
ever
Roy
cheat?
Keane walk out of the island? Yeah, didn't Roy Keane walk out of the World Cup because he didn't get on with Mick McCarthy or something like that?
Yeah. How about here's
I
another one. Didn't he also basically assault Alvin Haaland?
think, yeah, almost finished his career. So I think we'll take a moral high ground from someone else. Thanks, Roy.
Yeah.
And Jamie O'Hara as well. Jamie O'Hara was really annoyed about it. Who's mostly famous after a few games for Spurs for marrying a glamour model. So I think James Ward-Prowse probably slept pretty soundly, unlike a couple of his England colleagues.
Well, I guess Phil Foden and Mason Greenwood are going to be missing out for the game against Denmark, which I suppose probably further cements James Ward-Prowse's chance to be starting for England again. And England versus Denmark, that's the big James Ward-Prowse, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg showdown, isn't it?
The reunion. And I think with Greenwood out, also I didn't watch all of the game. I watched bits of the game on Saturday, but was it Sunday? Saturday? Saturday. But yeah, as Harry Kane looked exhausted, and whether they'll want to put Harry Kane for a second game in 3 or 4 days, I don't know. You might see two Saints players start tomorrow night, which would be very exciting.
Do you think so? And this is the thing. Do you remember last season, Tom? This time last season, we were talking about a Saints start to the season, and correct me if I'm wrong, but had Burnley played some European football qualifiers at this point?
They certainly had the season before that.
Yeah.
It was all very, it was quite strange. Well, it's just a terrible start, wasn't it?
Yeah. But the point that I kind of wanted to get onto with that, is that going to benefit Danny Ings and James Ward-Prowse and the other players that are getting some international games this week? Is it going to benefit them at the weekend when we end up going to Palace? Are they going to feel more ready, more fit just because they've had that more game time?
Yeah.
There hasn't been an awful lot of a pre-season, has there?
No, well, Sterling said that, I think Sterling almost talked about that in the interview after the England game, where he said, well, this is the best way to get up to speed is to play games, which is a funny way to talk about a sort of semi-competitive international fixture. But, I think so. Palace, which I guess we'll come on to, don't seem to have had much of a, like Saints haven't really, have they? Not had much of a pre-season.
Yeah.
They're certainly not the sort of intense foreign training camp that you normally see from Saints. You'd say so. Saints have had a lot of players, haven't they, in international action? I think, Stuart Armstrong, Bednarek, obviously Ward-Prowse, Danny Ings, Vestergaard, I think, has played as well. So there's a fair few in the mix there that represent the countries.
Yeah, and I guess Ralph won't have very long with them before the start of the season, but then in many ways I think kind of what we did in lockdown, that was Ralph Ball, that is what he's been trying to do. So if he sticks with kind of broadly the same lineup that we finished the last season with, because it was such a short period of time ago, I think that might be okay. I think the players will click.
Yeah, it doesn't worry me, but because I think you're right. Cause it's just a system, isn't it? And I think one of the best things that happened to Saints was the Project Restart break, because it almost gave him the opportunity to again really hammer home that system into the players. Okay. Also, even if they're not playing, I mentioned they've all got iPads with all sorts of videos and diagrams and graphs and everything, pointing out what they need to be doing.
Yeah, Tom, I've got the Saints squad photographs here, right, and all the players. There's 2 players and 1 ex-player that I think are looking at, like they've got a bit of a paunch on. One of those is Sofiane Boufal.
Boufal looks like a big lad, doesn't he?
I'm sure he was the skinny guy from Morocco when we bought him. He's now looking pretty beefy.
Yeah, but not in a good way.
No.
He's just got a bit of a paunch.
Yeah, it's coming out the front, isn't it?
He can't. Surely he can't be, but at the same time, it could just be a bad picture. But does look like he's put. I mean, how's he put on weight?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, he's also got one of those beards, which is quite good at, hiding a double chin if you've got one.
I mean, I know about that better than anyone. So, yeah.
But
yeah, who else are you going to say? So
because Ryan Bertrand looks like he's got a little bit of middle-age spread as well in his picture.
Let's have that number 3. Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Maybe it's just a
bad photographer.
Bad angle, John. I mean, we're all capable of it.
Yeah. I mean,
Bertrand's a pro. He's surely not going to let himself go.
No. I mean, it's mainly the angles, I think, that have been the problem for me for, most of my life in terms of the photographs. But Kelvin Davis, he's not looking great either, is he?
Kelvin is, he's enjoying retirement, isn't he, clearly? They're kind of quite menacing, a lot of those, actually, the sort of back, the sort of the bench photos, aren't they? They're a bit scary. Like, Kelvin's sort of that shadow. It looks like he's coming out of a prison shadow to sort of shank you or something. It's a bit scary.
So anyway, well, ladies and gents, basically what's Tom and I doing? We're looking at the Southampton FC first team photographs. And the reason we're doing that is because we were just having a chat before we started recording that we're looking a little bit thin in terms of our first team squad. Is that fair to say, Tom? I mean, maybe not across all positions, but I think the midfield looks a bit thin.
Yeah, we've almost so we've got 2 for every position at the back. 4 centre backs, 2 left backs, 2 right backs. We've got arguably probably one too many first choice goalkeepers.
Mm-hmm.
But then for a team whose midfield pivot is so crucial, we look a little bit light in the centre midfield because what are we looking at here, Joel? We're looking at 3 centre midfielders.
Yeah, I mean,
May, Ward-Prowse and Smallbone. And Smallbone, I'm sort of shoehorning him into that because he's not really played there.
No, I mean, it looks light, doesn't it? I mean, the thing is, Tom, if let's say if Reed and Lamina were still out on loan, or we still have Pierre, it feels like we probably had someone lined up to replace Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, and it hasn't quite happened. Or you're right, just to kind of like beef up what we've got in the middle, because Armstrong, Boufal, Smallbone, Redmond, they're all played out wide, aren't they? Gineppo as well. They're not going to be coming into the middle, which means you've only got Ward-Prowse, Romeo, and then Smallbone. I suppose Armstrong could play in the middle if he was needed. But it does seem light, and I wonder if, did we actually feel like we were going to get Weston McKennie? Because, I mean, he's gone to Juventus, which I can see why a player might choose Juventus over Southampton.
You mean would you rather live in Turin than in Southampton, John? Really?
Well...
Don't answer that, maybe.
So anyway, I wonder if we might see another player kind of bought, because I mean normally you'd expect 22 players in your first team. Two for every position. We've got 4 goalkeepers. We've got 4, strikers. But then midfield just looks that little bit light. I think we could, or are we going to promote someone through from the under-23s? I mean, perhaps that's something we could come into. But I think we got. Our transfer business, it looked like we got the 2 main bits of business done early, but we seem to be missing the 3rd bit of business. Is that how you feel it's gone with bringing in Salisu and Carwalker Peters?
Yeah. And I do. And I think it's all well and good, isn't it? I mean, Ward-Prowse obviously played every minute of every game last season, every Premier League game. But that's quite an exceptional thing, and you can't really rely on someone doing that. Romeo looked good when he came in towards the end, but obviously we know he has the propensity to get booked quite a lot. He's going to miss games, and also he's arguably a lot different footballer from Højbjerg, and I think there's been quite a lot of revisionism from Saints fans in terms of how important Højbjerg was. I thought it was really interesting. Example of kind of football fans sort of being, well, it doesn't matter, he's actually not that important. He's actually not that big a deal for us. He's welcome to it. He's not been very good. But really, he's actually vital to how Saints played over the last couple of years in terms of his ability to break the ball and his ability to get the ball away quickly. And I just think we haven't got that. And Romeo, for all his strengths and all his skills, and in terms of his winning the ball back and his aggression and his experience, you can't argue that he's a like-for-like replacement. And my worry is that unless we get one, we are one red card, we are one injury away from a midfield pivot, which is Smallbone and one other.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at
maybe the idea is you'd move Armstrong in.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I'm sure Ralph must have a plan, because otherwise you'd expect there'd be an awful lot more news and rumours circulating around Saints trying to bring in another midfielder. But just to kind of emphasise how important Højbjerg has been to Saints over the last 4 seasons, he's played 35 games, 28 games, 33 games, and 38 games across the season. So not an ever-present like James Ward-Prowse, but a lot of games there. A lot of game time. Only 4 goals, all of them not in last season, but the season before that. But yeah, I mean, he was an important part of Saints' team, and it's not often that you would sell a first-team player and not kind of directly replace them. But, we kind of coped without him at the end of last season. So I'm sure that's kind of at the forefront of the minds of Ralph and the management team there. But you're right, we're only a suspension to Romeo, an injury, to Ward-Prowse. Let's hope that doesn't happen. And suddenly we're looking very, very thin on the ground. But I mean, I'm not entirely sure kind of where we're looking in terms of finances. I mean, LD Sports have pulled out in terms of the sponsorship of Saints, and I think they're partly owned by our owner, which is interesting, because I thought there's maybe some kind of dodgy financial play there. But Saints are saying that they're suing them, but then do you sue a company that's owned by your owner? That doesn't seem... I mean, it all seems a bit funny, doesn't it? So perhaps the money's trickling up.
Very murky.
You also had the Premier League Chinese football television deal. Like they hadn't paid up, and so the Premier League have kind of cut them loose. And that's like 500 odd million for the Premier League. So, I mean, I wonder if there's some things going on there kind of politically or financially between Chinese ownership of the Premier League and just generally the Chinese relationship with the Premier League, which has been pumping a lot of money into that league for a while, and maybe there's some bumps in the road there.
Yeah, I mean, well, and also you've got no gate receipts for a quarter of last season, and for God knows how long this coming season. Players took a temporary pay cut, but they're probably back on the money now. It's interesting. I think obviously we're really linked, as you say, to Weston McKennie. I just really, you have to trust the club because they get it right, but you worry about the loss of Harrison Reed. Harrison Reed just seemed like the one player. I saw him a couple of times on TV for Fulham last year, and he was just, you'd have thought he'd be perfect for Saints. And also there's a broader question about just money in general. I mean, 10-12 million pounds for Pierre. 8 million pounds Harrison Reed. So we're probably, when Salisu and while Carwalker Peters deals are probably net spend of 2 or 3 million. So you'd think we would have some money to spend.
Yeah, I've had a little look online of the Saints transfer dealings, and Højbjerg was out for around about 17 million. This is all in euros, by the way, so I'm on a European website. Apologies for those that like to work in pounds and pence, but they're pretty similar, pretty comparable at the moment. So about 17 million for Højbjerg, 9 million for Reed, Mario Lemina with a loan fee of 2.2 million it's got here. So that's 27 million coming in, and then 25 million going out, with Carwalker Peters apparently 13 million to Tottenham, and then Salisu is 12 million euros to Real Valladolid. Not Real Valladolid, Real Valladolid. I can't say it, Tom, but Real V.
Is it Real Valladolid?
Real Valladolid. Yeah.
So either thing. I don't know.
Yeah. We're not very...
Yeah, it's just for me. It's we kind of you think we're gonna have a bigger net spend than that, and that's a bit worrying.
Well, I mean, presumably they got the football done. Project Restart happened, which guarantees the money still coming in. So you would have thought there would be some investment. We finished quite strongly in the league. We would have got a few extra million quid for doing that. So yeah. I mean, hopefully there's another signing in there. I think we also kind of did this last year and we're like, oh, how come we haven't signed a centre-back yet? And then we, signed Kevin Danso and we're all delighted. Let's hope Salisu is a, more of a kind of like Alderweireld Van Dijk than the Kevin Danso type. I don't know if you've read the articles about him, but, he seems kind of very well rated. Pretty much, I think the last article that Carl Anker wrote about Saints before he took his big money transfer off to Manchester United. But it looks like he's had a really rapid rise from Ghana straight into Real V, as I like to call them, and. He's had 2 seasons there. He's very highly rated. And one of the things that Carl quoted in his Athletic article about him was that many people kind of imagined that his fee might treble just in the space of a season. So, if we're talking about a player that we've brought in for 12 million and he might be trebling in value, I mean, there's some big things expected of him. And there were a lot of people, it seemed, willing to really talk the guy up. I remember when I think it was when we had Klaus Lundekvam on the podcast and I asked him about Elyounoussi and he was a bit like, yeah, he's kind of all right. He didn't really big him up. So, sometimes players do big them up, but the kind of gushing reviews that Salisu's had looks like he could become a really, really fantastic player. Yeah. And I think for all of the improvements that Stevens has made over the last few years, and he's made leaps and bounds. He's 10 times the player he was, both in defence and in terms of bringing the ball forward. And Bednarek is incredibly solid. It's still a weak spot for us, isn't it? That centre back position. So I think we've never replaced Van Dijk. You could argue that it's almost basically impossible to replace Van Dijk. But Salisu, described as what Rolls Royce for the defender. Could this be the guy? I mean, everyone, like you say, everyone is raving about this guy. We seem to have pulled off quite a coup by signing him, and also signing him for 12 million. When you look at Arsenal, people like that are paying easily double that for defenders from the French league. So it's very exciting, but who knows? I mean, but he's played Messi, he kept Messi reasonably quiet by all accounts, so he must be pretty mustard. Yeah. I mean, I'm excited about seeing him, and I think I don't think we will necessarily see him straight away, because if you look at the interviews and the things that Ralph has said about him, they're saying he's got to get used to the style and stuff like that. So there will be a journey for him to go onto. So we'll almost certainly be starting with Stevens and Bednarek in place. But I mean, I'm sure he will get his opportunity. At some point, Ralph is going to realise that Saints FC podcast were right all along, and that Jack Stevens is really Pirlo in disguise, and he's going to be pushed forward a bit, and then there's going to be the space for Salisu to fall into that. Obviously, another good signing, Tom Carwalker Peters. That was a very important signing, I think. It felt like a relief to get him over the line.
Yeah, well, so you worried, didn't you? Because he played so well for Saints that you worried that someone else would just sort of come in. I think West Ham were linked with him, weren't they, as well? But really important signing. Obviously, someone that just gets it for Saints. And I would argue probably our second or third most skillful player on the ball after Redmond and Boufal. He's a brilliant signing, and also a 5-year deal, fully committed. Obviously going to just be number one fullback, number one right back for Saints, which has been a troublesome position for probably a good couple of years now, since sort of Suarez went off the boil a little bit.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. I mean, I didn't know how far back you were going to go then. If you're going to go Ryan, if you're going to go, for
since
Jason Dodd or something like that. He's been a bit weak there, a bit light. No, it's great to see him signing up for the long term. But, I do feel like we are certainly another midfielder short in terms of the transfer window. Maybe we'll see another one brought in. Who knows what quality we'll be getting. There's been a few loans going out. Not many loan signings coming back in, but there is one who's been given a squad number. And that's Fraser Forster. So do you think he's going to be like a new signing? Or is this just...
I don't know,
are
John.
we trying to riff on something that's long since died out? Because, by all accounts, he had a pretty good season at Celtic last year. I know it is a different league, but he had a very good season at Celtic before he signed for Saints, and he did the first time around. He did very, very well for us, didn't he? Yeah,
and we've all seen, the best of Fraser Forster, and when he is at his best, he's arguably, a top quality goalkeeper. We've also seen the worst of his, and I was at the last game he played for Saints, the West Ham away, where we lost 3-0, and absolutely across the park, Saints were awful, but Forster just looks completely lost. Now, obviously, he's got his confidence back up in Scotland. It is fascinating. I can't see him being number one straight off the bat, but 3-2 doesn't go. Obviously, one of our sort of first choice goalkeepers is going to have to leave. It's probably going to be Gunn out on loan. But obviously Ralph wants to give him a chance. But isn't it kind of symptomatic? We talk about these loan players that we just had these players out on mega money. And if you look at, I see today, Hoyt is now, they're talking about another loan for Hoyt to go to Anderlecht. And, to your point, John, we've not signed a centre midfielder. I wonder if our failure to sign a centre midfielder, how much of that could be based upon the fact that we've got probably until Lamina went to Fulham, who can probably afford to pay his wages, we probably had £250,000 worth of player wages a week, probably out on loan. I imagine we were paying for most of.
Yeah, that's frightening, really, isn't it?
All these players. Korea, you'll never see. Korea, you'll never see in a Saints ever again. Same for Elyounoussi. Same for Hoyt. They're all, the irony is we'll just probably keep pumping them out on loan until they just leave on a free.
Yeah. So is Elyounossi's loan has been extended, has it?
Yeah, he's just in Celtic for another year.
Yeah. Why we're not getting a transfer fee from them for that? The other thing is Saints were rumoured along to get that Celtic midfielder. I can't remember his name now.
Nitcham.
Yeah,
Oliver
right.
Nitcham, the French guy. But yeah.
That seems to have died a death, hasn't it? So.
Yeah, that's gone very quiet. Very, very quiet. Yeah, I don't know. Obviously the club are happy, but you're right. Bringing players back, I think, Lamina obviously, we all know that Lamina has all of that talent. It is, God-given talent, but just won't do it consistently and won't put the effort in. So that obviously brought him out for Ralph straight away. See also Hoyt. Elyounoussi on the other hand just didn't look good enough. But Forster is the one that's come back, and fair play to him. That must take a lot of mental strength and resilience to be able to walk back into Saints and say, I want that number one spot. Whether he'll get it, I don't know. But he's, we've got Brentford next week, so I think you'll probably see him.
Yeah,
about between the sticks for that game next Wednesday night.
Yeah, well, there we go. So, Tom, let's kind of move on now. I think we need to kind of get away from the transfers. Maybe there'll be another signing. What do we do? Do we go? Should we do our predictions? Then we'll do the Palace preview. So let's get on to predictions. So, Tom, here we go. I've got some things here that I want you to think about. So, Tom, who? And these are predictions that we've done kind of most seasons. I've got our kind of like 18-19 ones on record here to see, if, what one of the categories we had back in 18-19 was, will James Ward-Prowse have a breakout season? Of which your answer back then was, don't know what a James Ward-Prowse is, brackets, no. Obviously, we do know what James Ward-Prowse is now. We obviously don't need to ask that question anymore, but, who will have a breakout season?
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Because we don't seem to have a huge number of young players coming through. I mean, you'd say probably Smallbone would be the one most likely to. Obviously, really rated by the club. Just been given a new contract, I think, hasn't he? Clearly, lots and lots of talent. And there was a great quote about, I don't know if you saw this, John, we talk about athletics too much, but about talking about Smallbone, where they said that the difference between him and Højbjerg is you can't teach Højbjerg to be a better passer of the ball, but you can get Will Smallbone to bulk up.
Yeah.
So that's the easier thing to do of those two. So, yeah, I would say Smallbone. I mean, John, who are you backing?
I've written down Smallbone here as well. So, let's just watch Nathan Teller have an amazing breakout season, I think.
Well, I think what's in Smallbone's favour is that we don't have many, he's going to probably end up playing a bit of centre midfield, and we just don't have any, whereas Teller is, Redmond, Gineppo, Boufal, Shane Long.
There's a long queue there, isn't there, for Nathan Teller to kind of get past
Redmond.
First.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think Smallbone's going to have a lot of games, and let's hope it is a breakout season, because if it is, that means he's done really, really well. The next question from 1819 was, will Mark Hughes get Saints playing progressive football? Of which me, you and my brother all said yes to.
We know nothing, John.
We were so optimistic back then. But, instead of saying progressive football, I mean, what's Ralph Ball going to be like this season? Because, I mean, we've seen some really good Ralph Ball. We've seen some dreadful Ralph Ball. We don't need to refer to a certain scoreline from last season, but you could argue that wasn't even Ralph Ball. He kind of lost his way a bit. But what are you expecting from the Ralph Hasenhüttl style of football?
Well, what will be interesting is if other teams learn to play around it, because we're still vulnerable, aren't we? Like, we're great when people... The Norwich game was a great example of this, wasn't it? Where Norwich just kept trying to play it out from the back, and Saints just kept winning the ball high up the pitch. And you were sort of like looking at Norwich thinking like, what on earth are you doing? Like, why do you keep doing that? It's just not working for you. Like lemmings just jumping off a cliff. So what will be interesting is if teams adjust what they do to bypass the press, because we're still vulnerable, aren't we? Long balls over the top.
Oh, yeah.
And sort of diagonal balls, like the Richarlison goal.
Yeah.
So we're still hyper vulnerable on those. So it'll be interesting to see if teams stick to their guns against Saints and sort of know we will play out from the back because that's what we do, or whether they'll decide to, just think, right, well, pragmatism wins the order of the day. Just get the ball past the press, and we'll have a decent chance. Yeah,
I mean, your kind of answer is much more intelligent than mine, which was just going to be amazing but inconsistent. Which I think we'll have. What I mean by that is we'll have some amazing results against some of those big teams. So we will, we'll beat some of the big teams next season. I'm sure of it. Because Ralph Ball will disrupt what the big teams are trying to do. But we will probably also still see us lose to the likes of Burnley or West Ham or Newcastle United, who have that much more direct style of football, which we just don't know how to defend. I mean, maybe Salusi's going to be the answer to that. 6'2", can head it back, or and quick. I think that's probably one of the biggest frustrations, especially when Vestergaard was on the pitch, that we were so vulnerable to that long ball football. And you're right, if teams go direct, we're gonna suffer. Or that's another thing that we need to learn to deal with better this season.
Yeah, I think the biggest improvement to Ralph Ball will be raising the team, the game against. It's not your Man Cities, is it? It's not your Chelseas, it's not your Tottenhams or Man United. It's, can you raise it against Burnley? Can you raise it against Newcastle? Because that's the difference. What are we looking at? 9 away wins last year, third best away team in the Premier League in terms of number of victories. Only Norwich had a worse home record than us.
Yeah.
So, for Saints, it's about if we can even get 2 or 3 more wins at home. All of a sudden that propels us much, much further up that table. But the irony is, we sort of lose to the sort of teams that, the Newcastle game, which I was at, where Saints were awful. Burnley, West Ham. Those are 3 games in that sort of December, January period, which were eminently winnable. Actually, Newcastle's March, but all games that you'd have thought we'd get a result, and we didn't. And that is the difference between that's the difference between us finishing like an 11th and us finishing 7th.
Yeah,
it's those games, and that's the trick for Ralph Ball, isn't it? It's like lads, when you're playing Man City and you're being watched by millions of people all over the world, that's great, but do it.
Can you also do it in that game that no one else is watching? Apart from
so that's the difference.
Yeah. Okay. And what do you think we should be targeting this season? What should be the in Ralph's strategy that he presents to the board? Where are we going to be aiming?
Top 10, you'd have thought, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Because you have to think they have to make progress, and they finished 11th. The progress is top 10.
Yeah.
Top 10 and decent cup run. We should be a good cup team. This is what I don't understand.
Well, I mean, historically, Ralph Hasenhüttl hasn't done very well in the cups with his teams, which is strange because you thought, that football can beat anyone, or, is that perhaps another one that kind of highlights that vulnerability to the teams that go more direct, that, maybe you're more likely to come across a lower league team that's willing to hoof it up and beat you that way. I mean, I went for this one. We should be targeting, 6/7th, that last Europa League place, and the FA Cup or the League Cup, a cup run. I think that's got to be a target.
Yeah, and if you think we've got, it's difficult though, isn't it? Because that means if we finish 6th or 7th, that means we've got more points than one of Liverpool, Man City, Tottenham, Chelsea, Man United, Wolves, Leicester.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Wolves or Leicester are impossible, but that Man United, Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea and Tottenham, they're harder. But, we have done it before.
Yeah.
Yeah. And where do you think we'll actually finish? What's our end of season position going to be? So if you're targeting the top 10, where are we going to finish?
I think my worry is what we spoke about, John, which is the centre midfield. We just look really light. So I'd say probably 12. I just don't think we've got the strength and depth. And I also think there's a bigger, there's various nightmare scenarios, isn't there? But one is a Danny Ings injury. Because, Swaz Adams did step up towards the end. We still look very light.
Yeah.
For goals, we do need more goals from across the team. Redmond needs to score more. Buffon needs to score more. Gineppo needs to score more. Need more goals.
You make a good point there, but what I think is kind of quite funny about the whole league position is it's so dependent on the other sides around you, isn't it? Because last season we had more points than the season that we finished 8th with Claude Puel, yet we finished 11th.
By quite some way, was it 54 to 47? So, by quite some distance. And we were 8th and 11th, completely agree.
So, I mean, with my target of that last Europa League place, I think we'll finish the place below that. That's my end of season prediction. So let's say 8th.
I mean, that would be amazing.
I mean, it would be a good season. It'd be a fun season. But ultimately, we'll just be pipped to the post at the end, Tom. There'll be that little bit of disappointment. But, maybe we'll win the FA Cup.
I'd take that.
Yeah.
I'd take that disappointment. Would you take getting relegated and winning the FA Cup, John?
Yeah, you know my answer to this question. It's yes.
Yeah, 100%.
We normally ask who's going to score the most goals from the new signings, which last season was quite exciting. So we had obviously Gineppo and Che Adams, let's have a look, Tom. What did you predict? You predict Elianusi was going to get the most goals out of our new signings. I predicted Vestergaard. James predicted Che Adams. James, my brother, who has been on the podcast before. So anyway, I guess you've got Saliso and Carwalker Peters to choose from here, Tom. Not necessarily two likely goal scorers.
No, I mean of the two, Saliso got one, didn't he, for Real Valladolid? So I would, but I'd still guess Saliso. He's a big unit.
Yeah, I've gone for Saliso
we don't
as well.
seem to score many direct goals, do we, off corners?
No, Vestergaard has got one, didn't he, against Man United?
No, he didn't. The ball was crossed back in, so we took a corner.
You're right. Yeah.
And someone crossed it in. I can't remember who it was.
Jack Stevens, though, he gets the occasional direct.
Jack Stevens got one against Villa.
Yeah.
Danny Ings, was that a free kick?
Mm.
He scored against Norwich from James Ward-Prowse. I can't remember. No, that was from a corner. I don't know. It does for the quality we've got in Ward-Prowse's deliveries. We don't seem to get enough.
Yeah. Another question that we've had, which again is influenced by previous seasons, but perhaps not last season, is will we do better than just survival? I mean, I'm going for a big yes with the 8th, but at 12th, Tom, what sort of a 12th position is that? Is that a comfortable mid-table finish, or is that, some of it's been a bit nerve-wracking? We didn't know if we were in a relegation battle or not, but ultimately in the end we were okay.
I mean, I make terrible predictions anyway. So you'll remember like a couple of seasons ago, I said, well, yeah, all the promoted teams are all going to get relegated. I mean, like Sheffield United will be relegated before Christmas. So who knows? I mean, you got Fulham and West Brom. Can't see them doing much, can you? But everyone's signing. I mean, even Newcastle, signing Callum Wilson today.
Yeah.
Good player. The player, Leeds bought Rodrigo from Valencia. People are spending big. They're not buying many players, I think, but they're kind of spending big. And it'll be interesting to see, teams like Fulham, if they make the same mistakes that they did last time, where they, last time they came to the Premier League, where they just signed an entirely new first-team squad and then got promptly relegated. So I think a lot of that will obviously, would depend on how Saints will do. It's going to be such a funny season, and you wonder if the kind of congested season will suit Saints in terms of our style of play, or it might be a real detractor because of the energy we expend.
Yeah.
Doing it, it's going to be harder to keep that going over a 38-game season when the season is shorter and the players haven't had proper break.
I think the one thing that we could have done with keeping from last season was the timeouts midway through the half, especially that second half one. The water break, which Ralph just used incredibly effectively. I mean, he's got to find a way of being able to influence the game from the sidelines more effectively, hasn't he? Because we saw when they stopped and, had a break for 2 minutes, he was able to definitely impact the game after that. So he's got to work out how he can do that in-game management and actually affect a game around about that sort of 70-minute point.
But I guess that's about the intelligence of the players he's got on the pitch, and you'd hope with Ward-Prowse now as captain, I think that's going to bring something a bit different. You just kind of hope he's going to have the ability to get his instructions across. And also, what's nice is we've not had a wholesale revision of the team. You could argue that there's actually only one new player that's going to come into that team, and that's Lisa. We don't know when he's going to come in. It's virtually, apart from Højbjerg, the same players last season, and you could argue actually without Højbjerg, it's the same 11 that did Project Restart.
Yeah. Okay, Tom. Here's the next one. Next prediction I'd like you to make for is the player to look out for.
Oh, I think Shay Adams seems to. I'm quite excited because Shay Adams is sort of like he's got a bit of a swagger about him, hasn't he? Like Danny Ings is like a nice boy.
Do you think?
Shay Adams is almost like, well, I mean, you wouldn't want to date your sister, but Shay Adams is a bit more like pugnacious. He's a bit more scrappy.
Yeah.
And I think I loved Shay Adams' goal against Man City. It was brilliant, and I think his goals against Bournemouth and against Sheffield United were all good goals. And I think, to be honest, they're too often the sort of chances that like a Shane Long misses, weren't they? Sort of, ball dropping in the box. And I'm really excited about Shay. I think Shay Adams could, and also alleviate the burden of Danny Ings, which would be very welcome, I think, from everyone. I'm going Shay Adams. What about you, John?
I've gone for Salisu just because I've read about him. I'm excited about him, and I think he could be a player that most people won't have heard of at the start of the season, but most people will know by the end of the season. I'm quite excited about Salisu. My brother's gone for Carwalker Peters, so I think that's a good shout as well. I think he could have a really good season. And who do you reckon our player of the season is going to be? He's going to make their mark on the
JWP.
Saints FC podcast. Yeah. Same. That's what I've gone for. So there's no debate there. Why is it not going to be Danny Ings? Is it because he just can't have a season as good as last season ever again? I mean, it was wonderful, wasn't it?
Well, he can. Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely no way. I mean, if anything, he should have had a better season. He should have scored that bloody penalty against Bournemouth. Was it Bournemouth? Yeah, it was Bournemouth. But I just think, Ings is so talented and he's so clever, I think. But what Ward-Prowse brings to, I think, almost like Ward-Prowse has become, the irony is, for like such a seemingly quiet, meek, modern, mildly mannered guy, he's almost become like a talisman for Saints. And I think like things like he did against Iceland, where he scuffs the penalty spot a little bit. I think people are sort of loving him a little bit, aren't they? And they're sort of seeing him as just this really important character. So for me, James Walker.
From cult hero to the player of the season. And okay, I mean, we had a youth player to establish themselves in the first team, but I think we've kind of done that with Smallbone, haven't we? Kind of with a breakout. So I don't know if you think there's anyone else who we might see kind of sneak into the first team squad from that under-23 squad.
Yankovic is the one they talk about, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he's a centre midfielder. He's very young, John. He's only 18. I mean, there's not many 18-year-old centre midfielders in the Premier League.
No, I mean, it can happen, though. I mean, it would be amazing if it did. I mean, if we go back and listen to this at the end of the season and we think, we were worried about the midfield and little did we know we had Yankovic and Smallbone waiting in the wings to just dominate the whole Premier League. Perhaps wishful thinking, maybe.
37. Yeah. Combined age younger than me.
Who's going to be our top goal scorer next season?
Danny Ings, of course he is.
Danny Ings. Just because I knew that you'd have to say Danny Ings, I've gone for Che Adams. But it's probably going to be Danny Ings, isn't it?
He's contrarian.
Yeah. And he's going to be the Premier League's top goal scorer.
Oh, I go with Aubameyang.
Damn it! I've got Aubameyang as well. Well, it's not going to be Harry Kane, is it? By the looks of things, because he already looks knackered. And you've got Mourinho in charge of Tottenham.
How can Harry Kane be knackered already?
Yeah. Who else have you got in the running? You've got Mane, you've got Mohamed Salah.
I mean, you can never rule Aguero out, can you?
Aguero, yeah. Sterling, perhaps.
Yeah. You don't think of Sterling, do you? But then he's just quietly there getting 20 goals every season.
Yeah.
My money will be on
Aubameyang.
Because I think as well Arsenal are just going to build their team around him. Yeah, and everything's just going to go through Aubameyang.
Yeah, and Arsenal are looking a lot better now, aren't they? I think they're probably going to be pushing, I think, for the top four again, potentially, this season. So my brother, in all his optimism, has gone for Ings and Ings. So Ings is going to be Saints and the Premier League top goal scorer. Who's your top four going to be, Tom? Are Liverpool going to retain the title? Man City going to come back? Are Burnley going to finally get their hands on the Premier League?
So top four from ascending order. So I would say, I think Man United fourth, Chelsea third, Man City second, Liverpool first. Just can't see Liverpool not winning it, can you? Because they've also managed to keep hold of that team. And I don't know if Nathan Ake. Yeah, and I don't think Nathan Ake is going to be they're a shambles at the back, Man City, aren't they? Which is nuts to say it, but they are. And I don't know if Nathan Ake is the one that you need to kind of is going to make that much of a difference.
He's going to shore them up. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, I mean, he looked pretty... I know he's playing in a terrible team, but he looks pretty shaky for ball. But he didn't make. I know he didn't make a single mistake for 120 games that led to a Premier League goal. All these things, but he wasn't that good either. So
Yeah.
it almost just struck me as there aren't that many good centre backs that fit Man City's profile, so they just went and bought the one that was.
Do you think Salisi is going to be next on their shopping list by the end of next season?
Probably.
Yeah.
But then if he is, then it's going to cost them more, like 40, 50 million quid.
Well, it'll be because he's had a great season if that is the case.
Then they just find another one.
Yeah.
Mm.
My brother's
Absolutely.
gone Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Man United. I presume from top to bottom, and I've gone for Man City, Liverpool, Man United, then Arsenal. So there we go. None of us think that Tottenham are going to.
Chelsea players signed are just phenomenal, aren't they?
Yeah, but they've still got Frank Lampard as their manager. I'm still not 100% convinced yet.
True.
Yeah.
True.
But they're a good shout. I think they could do it. And okay, here's probably perhaps a more interesting question, Tom. Is who's going to be the bottom three? You don't have to put these in order. I just wonder who you think is going to get relegated.
But you can't. Fulham and West Brom, you can't see past those two. Don't know about Leeds. Leeds are spending big, aren't they? And they're quite financially backed, and Bielsa's a very, very shrewd manager. Obviously, I'll go with my dream, John. My dream would be West Ham.
Always hopeful, Tom. Always.
That's my dream, John. You got to have a dream in life, and mine is to see West Ham relegated.
Yeah. I think you've been hoping for that for a while.
Yeah.
So here you go, and I've got one left field one here, and I've actually taken your prediction from last season, and I think Sheffield United are going to get relegated this season.
Ooh. What's that based on, John?
I think when a band comes out with an amazing first album, an amazing kind of like first season, yeah, and then the second one is just dreadful. No, I'm thinking it's going to be even worse. I think we're talking about Stone Roses' second coming levels of dreadfulness here,
like MGMT or someone like that.
Yeah, I just think that they're just not going to be very good next season. And I think they're going to struggle. And then I think they might, it'll be one of those ones where either they'll hang on to Chris Wilder for too long, or, they might go through three managers, sort of Watford style.
Yeah, I don't think they will. I think what's interesting is they've not signed another striker, have they? They're a fascinating team because they finish really highly and they don't seem to have strikers that score. Leeds Mousset scored a few, Billy Sharp scored a few, McBurney scored a few.
I think McGoldrick
got one. So, yeah, they might get found out. But then they're a very good team and they've kept their team together, haven't they? They've kept that unit. So,
yeah.
I disagree with that.
That's my wild one. And the other two, I've got Villa and West Brom taking up those positions. I think somehow Fulham are going to, the obvious one I would have gone for would have been Villa, West Brom and Fulham. But I wanted to be more controversial than that. So I've gone Villa, West Brom and Sheffield United.
Yeah.
Who's going to be the Saints' cult hero next season?
So we've got Ward-Prowse already, so we can't kind of...
I don't think he can win it 2 years in a row.
No. Cult hero... I think, isn't it the season is ripe for a Gineppo breakout, surely?
Okay. Yeah, you can have that.
He's a funny player, isn't he?
Yeah. He's one of those players that will do amazing stuff and some dreadful stuff, probably.
Yeah. Just a funny player. Only 2 goals. You'd think he'd have got more.
My brother's gone for Chele, which is a good shout.
Oh.
Che Adams. I think he could do it. I've gone for Carwalker Peters. I think he's just going to really... I think everyone's going to love him.
Yeah. I just really like him. I was a bit down on him after the Burnley game. But then I think playing against Burnley isn't really the measure of any footballer now. I think it's what we're learning.
Yeah.
Because they're just so different and so difficult to play against. I think, but in terms of what I love about Carwalker Peters is he's really skillful and he's not afraid to use it. So he just quite happily dribble past like 3 players to get the ball out at right back when anyone else would just hoop it down the line.
I mean, he could also potentially get found out a couple of times, couldn't he, doing that sort of stuff?
Yes. That's the price you pay, isn't it? No, I think he's really talented.
Yeah.
Is he a future England right back?
I think he could be. I mean, seeing what his namesake Kyle Walker did, against Iceland.
Yeah.
I think there could be a potential England cap for Carwalker Peters at some point.
Yeah. I mean, how old is Kyle Walker? He's got like 31 or something. He is. Did you see him get sent off, John?
Yeah,
it was such an embarrassing
so
thing.
bad, wasn't it?
It was so awful. He's 30, Kyle Walker, coming up to 31. No, we're not actually coming up to 31. 31 in quite a while. But he's just, yeah. I think I'd like to see Kyle Walker Peters get an England cap because we're not blessed with right backs, are we, at England? We're better with obviously Trent Alexander-Arnold. So there you go.
Yeah, he's pretty good, isn't he?
Yeah. It's a bit like being a tennis player in the time, like being Andy Murray, isn't it, in the time of sort of Djokovic and Nadal and Federer. Having Alexander-Arnold in front of you. But yeah, I think, you could see him in the squad. Him and Alexander-Arnold could be England's right backs for the next sort of 5-6 years, couldn't they? Well, Alexander-Arnold will be for the next 10 years.
Yeah, well, I mean, if they kind of carry on the current trajectory, I think so. I mean, maybe could that be one of your bonus predictions? There's points for bonus predictions. Is that Carwalker Peters to get an England cap before the end of the season, Tom?
Yeah, let's go with that. I think that's a nice one.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm just looking at the England squad now, who are the other right backs? Trent Alexander-Arnold or Kieran Trippier, obviously. Yeah. I have strong views on England in terms of that they shouldn't be playing. They should have the best players doing the best things rather than having Kieran Trippier take every set piece.
Yeah. Yeah. Kieran Trippier he's funny because he's not been very good for quite a long time now, but he was obviously brilliant in the 2018 World Cup, so he's still there. I think this is the thing, isn't it? Gareth Southgate's almost got to the point where loyalty is getting in the way of his better judgment, which felt so fresh right at the start. But, perhaps, we saw James Ward-Prowse, we've seen Danny Ings, we've seen Phil Foden coming in, Greenwood's coming in. So maybe Trippier's days are... Maybe he's not seen Carwalker Peters yet. It was post-lockdown, really, that he came to the fore. So there you go. I think that's a good prediction. Carwalker Peters, England cap.
Yeah, I like it. Let's go with it.
Yeah. I've gone for Saints will beat Liverpool. How do you fancy that one, Tom, this season?
It's a no from me.
No?
I'm afraid. No, I just can't see it. They're just... I mean, they'll play well against Liverpool, but they're just so good, aren't they?
Yeah. My brother's gone for Che Adams getting more than 10 goals this season. I think that's...
Yeah, I would totally go with that. That's actually quite soft on Shea. I think Shea will be looking more than maybe 12, 13.
Oh, yeah. I think you could be right. Who, and this is, I think, a tough one to answer, who's going to be Saints' number one keeper at the end of the season, Tom?
I still think it's going to be McCarthy.
Okay.
But at the same time, who knows? I don't know, because he's clearly not got the full confidence, is he, of Hasenhüttl.
No. And I reckon Hasenhüttl must have given Forster some sort of hints that...
Yeah, well, he wouldn't have come back, would he, surely?
Yeah.
But also at the same time, there's also an argument that Will Forster is possibly the highest earning player at Saints. So maybe he just kind of has to come back to kind of earn that money.
Yeah. So we're ruling out Angus Gunn, and we think it's going to be between Forster and McCarthy. Yeah.
I don't know. I think with Khan, I think he just had that horror show, didn't he? And it wasn't his fault, but it's just difficult to come back from that. But then he's young for a goalkeeper. What is he, 24?
Yeah. Yeah, he's young.
So, I mean, I think they'll chuck him out on loan they'll chuck him out on loan for a season, and that'll be absolutely fine.
And who's going to be our centre-back pairing at the end of the season?
Salisu and I would argue Bednarek, which is sad, isn't it, really? Because I want Stevens to play.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm too loyal. I could never be a football manager.
No, because we like Jack Stevens, who just play every game.
Yeah. Are we going to have some iconic commentary to replace our current Saints FC podcast intro? So
if we get
Tom, we've got, just to remind you, we've got FA Cup winning goal 1976, Matt Letizia last goal at the Dell, and Shane Long's goal against Liverpool to get us through to the League Cup final. Is there going to be anything more iconic than that this season?
I don't know. I mean, because if you think about it, that's either like an FA Cup winning goal,
yeah,
the goal that takes us to Wembley,
yeah,
or a goal which I don't think there could actually be any equivalent to, because obviously the Letizia last goal at the Dell was just so uniquely majestic. So I don't know. I mean, I would say, I hope so, and I think, if we get a good cup run, then there's every chance we have that.
Yeah, I mean, FA Cup winning goal commentary to add to that one in 1976, that would be pretty good. I mean, we've been waiting long enough now, Tom, haven't we?
Yeah, we deserve it. I mean, what are we supposed to do? We've got to, John. I mean, I'm 38. I mean, surely at some point I'm going to see us win something.
I mean, well, you have had the Johnson's Paint Trophy, Tom.
Yes, that is true. That is true. Who could forget the JPT?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, so I would very happily take that. My gut says no, but my heart says yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And will we get to see a game in person? Will the Saints FC podcast be physically present at a Southampton game next season?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they're talking about getting people in, aren't they, already in October?
Yeah.
Now, whether they will, I don't know, but they're talking about it. I'd hope so, John. It's not the same, is it, watching it on TV every day?
No, I want to go. I definitely want to go. My worry is that we've sold a lot of season tickets, and unless we're getting to the point where we're going to have full stadiums again, these season ticket holders are going to be sharing their opportunities to go to St Mary's, aren't they? They're going to be on a sort of rota amongst each other.
That leaves no space for anyone else.
Yeah, I just wonder if there's ever going to be a chance for anyone who's not a season ticket holder to get to a game. But maybe.
Yeah, and away games in particular, which we prefer, don't we? Yeah, tricky, very tricky. I mean, I'd hope so, but at the same time, I just really don't know. Tricky.
Yeah. I'm going to go for an optimistic yes.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to, don't you, really? We have to be optimists.
Yeah. Maybe they'll have the vaccine ready by like February, March, Tom, and then we can just go and watch all the last games of the season.
Yeah. Well, yeah. My parents have moved to near Brighton, so I definitely want to go to Brighton away. So, come on, guys. Get that vaccine.
Something to aim for.
Pull your finger out.
I mean, you'd have thought they'd have someone working on it by now, Tom, wouldn't you?
I'm going to check in with Matt Hancock. They should have someone doing something.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are all the predictions I've got written down, Tom. I mean, is there anything else you wanted to say about what Saints season's going to be? Anything that you want to, pin to the mast and be like, this is what Tom Parker reckons the 2020-21 season's going to be?
What I will say is I reckon we shouldn't have sold Harrison Reed.
Yeah.
I think that's the boo-boo. I just think he could have been perfect for Saints.
You think we might live to regret that one?
Yeah, I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed.
Okay.
What about you, John? Go for it. Go wild.
I don't know. It's hard, isn't it? These predictions. It's just like having a stab at. I mean, I've already gone wild with Sheffield United getting relegated. That's pretty wild. And Saints beating Liverpool.
You've gone out there. Two things that I'd be very surprised if they happened.
Yeah. I do think one of those players that we've let go, maybe Reed or Lamina, might get a goal against us. I think that could happen. Right, Tom, I mean, we've got a game at the weekend, which we haven't even talked about yet.
No, I know. Gosh. Palace away.
Yeah.
Good ground for us in recent years.
Good ground. Is this actually the perfect first game of the season for Saints? Because I'm sure you've seen the stats, but Saints record in the first game of the season. I think for the last 22 or 23 seasons, we've won 2 or 3 matches.
Yeah. Barely any.
Yeah.
I think, I agree. I think it's a perfect game. I think Palace, obviously they've still got Zaha, who seems to be some sort of cursed character in a Greek tragedy player that just could never leave where he is and just stuck there forever and doing all the same thing brilliantly and then just never getting a move. They've obviously signed that Eze guy from QPR, who's meant to be very good, but they're still quite light at the back. And what did we get? We win 2-0 there last year.
Yeah, Redmond and Armstrong.
2 brilliant goals. I agree with you, John. I think they would have wanted an away game. They'll have wanted a game against a team that doesn't do a sort of high press. And I think they'll fancy their chances against Spurs. I really think they will. I'm sorry, against Palace. I think you could see us, John. You could see us adding to our first game of the season win ratio, which,
a rare,
as you say, is
Saints
awful.
win. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad it's not away to Burnley or Newcastle or something like that.
Yeah. Or at home against Arsenal or something. But yeah, I take this and then it all goes. We go against Spurs. Very exciting. I'm really excited.
Okay, great. I'm very pleased. So, a bit of context. Last season, when we beat Palace, we moved up to 9th at the time, and that was just before our kind of bad run before lockdown.
Our wobble.
Yeah. God.
Yes.
If only we'd sorted out that wobble, how much better we would have been.
Could have gone to Europe.
Yeah. And then we've got, Brentford next as well?
Brentford and then Spurs.
And then Spurs.
So,
and then we've got the horrendous Burnley away fixture.
Yeah. But you'd think they would be aware of that now, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But it's not going to make any difference, is it? They're just going to hammer us with catapults into the box. We'll lose to 3-0.
Yeah. I mean, it's fairly, I actually kind of already looking at that, as I think it's fairly critical that we beat Palace, get those 3 points early, then we can play Tottenham without any fear.
Yeah.
And then...
Well, also, I think they were fancy Tottenham, weren't they?
I think so.
And also, if you look at our opening, I think this was on Dan Sheldon's piece on The Athletic earlier. There are other news publications available, by the way, listeners. We just assessed The Athletic. But yeah, I think we've got a very kind sort of first 9 games, haven't we? I think Tottenham and Chelsea are the only teams we play that you'd be actually scared of.
Yeah. Do you want to have a quick rundown? Palace,
go for it, John.
Tottenham, Burnley, West Brom, Chelsea, Everton, Villa, Newcastle, Wolves. Then we've got Man United. So what's that? That's our first 10 games, pretty much.
Yeah.
9 games. 10 games, including Man United. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we're going to be in better shape this season. It's a more of an even spread. There's hard games there, but then there's games which are eminently winnable interspersed between them. But then, do we have anything? Do we really need to worry about it? I mean, let's look at the end of last season. We beat Bournemouth, beat Sheffield United, drew with Man United. There was some good beat Man City, obviously. Some good results towards the end of last season. If we can keep that sort of form, 3rd best in the league at the time. I mean, that's what we want, isn't it, Tom?
Absolutely. It has to be. It has to. You almost want it just to be like, the break we've had is just like an international break, and we just carry on like we were.
Yeah. So, I mean, your game is not going to be a slow start. Everyone's going to be fitter, happier, more productive, ready to hit that first game against Palace. Is that what you're feeling? Is that what you're sensing, Tom? Can you feel it in your waters?
I got a good feeling, John. I think the mood, everything you see, the mood around the club seems to be really positive. I do think they'll miss Højbjerg, but I think they'll get away with it initially. So yeah, I think there's loads of reasons to be cheerful, loads of reasons to be optimistic. We're going to have maybe 2 players start for England tomorrow night. That's really inspiring to the other players, other young players at Southampton. So yeah, I'm really excited about Saturday. Really look forward to it.
Well, I think, Tom, on that note, with all this positivity and looking forward to the first Premier League weekend of the season, we should call it a night.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. Well, Tom, it was an absolute pleasure as always. Listener, if you've enjoyed what you've heard, you can write in at saintsfcpodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear your predictions. What kind of left field ideas can you throw at us? We might read some of those out if you can go really wild with your predictions. And we might read those out on the next episode, where we will know a little bit about what Saints' start of the season is looking like.
Very exciting, Don. Very exciting indeed.
Right, so there's only one more thing now to do, and that's listen to the Saints fans sing us out. So cheerio, everyone.